Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you all had a good break. For our next presentation today, we have our friends from GE Digital here. I just want to remind everyone that that we do have the Q&A mechanism for your questions that we'll try to respond to as many of them to as we can live at the end of this the session, and we'll be able to get back to you with answers for the rest of them afterwards. With that said, I'd like to welcome our friends from GE Digital. We're going to have a brief GE presentation, and then John Corsdale will be speaking to provide the briefing. Alan, you want to run the presentation, run the video?
Good afternoon and good morning. Welcome. My name is John Corsdale. I'm a product manager at GE Digital for Power Gen Oil and Gas Digital Worker Portfolio Solutions. And today I'm here to talk to you about remote operations for oil and gas and chemical industries. So recently we rolled out a change to our portfolio on how we present our solutions to customers, and restructured it as asset performance, operations and business performance, and workforce empowerment. And we're thinking of those categories will resonate more in terms of assets, processes, and people. As part of the operations and business performance, we have a remote operations solution that also works with the workforce empowerment solutions of rounds, digital inspections, advanced communications, and mobile HMI. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. So what we see in oil and gas is an emerging operating model, and tipping points and trends that we've seen for a while in the industry is really a lot of cost pressure on oil and gas producers. Climate change is driving those capital investments. Electrification of the grid, electrical transportation is entering mainstream. And workforce is transitioning to a new generation. And on top of all of that, really as an ignition point, and a trigger, what we've seen is the global pandemic has ignited a new operating model where plants, utilities, operators have had to adjust of a reality of a pandemic and how to deal with that with isolated control rooms, quarantine procedures. The work from home, the real move to have a massive amount of your workforce working from home, and that really ignited a trend that we don't see reversing after the pandemic ends, and that's placed a lot of stress on the IT and OT security systems to be able to work from home and complete those kind of activities remotely as you needed to do from the pandemic. So it's really accelerated what we think is permanent operational changes that are going to occur across really industries, oil and gas being one of them, where they're really adopting remote staffing, flexible resourcing, centralized monitoring, and autonomous operations. So how do we see that playing out is really among the three personas. We see the mobile operator at the plant. So this could be an outside operator, an operator technician, or it could be a technician on the site. We see a remote technician. So this, maybe you have an instrument and controls expert who is covering three different facilities, or maybe they're covering one facility, but you only have one of them, and they need to be responsive 24/7. And then thirdly, we see the command center or the remote control from another location persona cropping up really in the marketplace. And all of those they really require secure and reliable controls connections. And that's really what our solution focuses on, those three personas, and that security and that reliability to let them remotely operate and remotely get their jobs done. So it's a packaged software and appliance solution. It provides remote and mobile access to on-site HMI monitoring and controls functions. Full HMI experience of controls includes the unit and the DCS controllers. It's controls OEM agnostics, It includes dedicated mobile worker features, such as this unlock button that you see on the bottom, and we'll talk about that in a little more detail a few slides from now. It includes granular access to controls and interactive permissioning, so that an operator who's actually operating the plant can delegate control to an outside operator in a really secure manner, and all parties know who's actually controlling the asset. And it's all built around an end-to-end NERC-CIP compliant architecture that is best in class and features really a zero trust outlook on the technology. So what has been our experience? Primarily, it's been in power generation to date. We have heard questions of in the oil and gas space, and we'll talk to that in a minute. We've had a number of deployments, and these are all real world use cases that we've deployed last year, our solution. So Canadian Power Generator deployed our solution for worker location flexibility. They want to be able to remotely log in and troubleshoot controls networks from not just their headquarters facility, but also from home in a secure manner. Weatherproof operations, where a Fortune 500 US generator is operating a simple cycle power plant from off-site, where it's a little more inland and away from Hurricane Alley. Latin American Power Generator is using our solution for on-site mobile staff efficiency. A US statewide utility is using it for remote startup of a combined cycle power plant from another combined cycle power plant with a really diverse portfolio of control solutions that are already in place, and we're pulling all of that together. A Middle East government-owned utility is using it for outsourced monitoring and operations, where we're actually providing quarantine personnel that are off-site and don't have access, providing them that access so they can get in and keep the plant running and operational. Multi-plant control flexibility. So we see a trend to want to remotely operate multiple plants from a centralized location. And even in the construction and the maintenance phase of plants and operations, we're seeing use cases and deploying use cases for lower costs, so that EPCs and controls services providers don't have to travel to the site and actually can provide faster, better service to the customer and not have to travel there. And that saves money on T&L, but also saves wear and tear on their operators and their resources. And you can see a couple of our logos, AES and Maximum Power, in their quotes. They're really flagship customers of ours, and we've relied on them heavily to gather VOC and really feed it back into the product of where we're taking it. Now, in the oil and gas and chemicals use cases, centralized monitoring of distant and dispersed equipment. So a lot of times it's a large facility, a larger facility than a power plant, even, with industrial equipment spread everywhere. Lights out operation at those distance facilities. So can they operate it unmanned? Can they troubleshoot, and can they start it up and shut it down unmanned? Can they get into the controls toolbox remotely? Remote monitoring and controls over the whole footprint of the operation. Sometimes the controls networks are separated, and our solution makes it easier to connect them and put them into a single control room. The mobile controllers and headquarters collaboration for maintenance crews activities is another use case that we're seeing. Anytime and anywhere access to experts. Like I said, you tend to have one or two really key experts for a controls, like a controller, a controls HMI, and that expert might just be at the headquarters level, and you can get better response and also save wear and tear on that expert, so they don't have to travel out to the site. And then remote mobile monitoring and controls for in-house power generation facilities is one that we're actually seeing a number of customers come to us recently and asking us about those solutions and could we deploy in those areas. And the answer is yeah. I mean, the use case is very similar for the power generation, the captive power, the cogen, but also extending from not just the downstream, but to the upstream. And we see a lot of opportunity to expand and grow our product into that space. Now, how is it secure and safe and compliant? We focus on, like I said, the three personas: the remote control center, the remote expert, and the offsite and mobile staff for that plant control room. It's all around a zero trust security backbone that includes multi-factor authentication through a token device. Control rooms can manage the access down to which individual HMIs an operator can see and has access to, and as well as what time frame they have access to. Added security features are just the logging and forensics of telling who logged in when, who tried to log in and was unsuccessful, as well as recording. So you might have a star operator who is very good at completing a key task, and we see that there's value in recording that task so that other operators can learn from that particular action in the future. It's also useful for forensics. So if you want to go back and see what was done in the last shift with respect to a particular activity remotely, that's recorded as well. You can see the architecture starts from a firewall and a remote connection broker. This is the piece that guides that access. Individuals outside of this firewall gain access through a laptop or server or a mobile device. If a corporate requires that, if a customer requires that VPN security is necessary along this path, then our solution is compatible with that as well. But it also works without the VPN access and maintains a sufficient level of security. And then through that firewall, the access is controlled by the administrator, either on the site or some sort of a super user with access. And the control room, whenever it's manned, has the administrator has the ability to kick anyone out from the active system who maybe shouldn't be there, or they need to take direct control of the asset. And one of the features that we're quite proud of is the mobile HMI capability of our solution. So we see that mobility and the ability to view the HMIs on a mobile device that's really what the operators have access to is going to add a lot of flexibility to how they conduct their operations. So what we've added to the mobile screens, and this is really enhanced through the simplicity views that we provide, is this unlock feature. So somebody who's accessed the system has the ability to view all of the assets, but they're not in control of all of the assets. They're only in control of the assets that they're permitted from either the remote control room or the local control room. And they can return control back, or they can request control from those personas. They can then unlock the screen, and this drops down after it hasn't been used, after a timeout, so that it prevents somebody from inadvertently activating the controls. And then once you've gotten the screen unlocked and you want to actually make a change to the control, a pop-out confirms the entry, and it's in a much more legible format. We've also thought about really the importance of ATEX cases in certain locations and lanyarding those cases, and those are provided with our solution, as well as a stylus with the tablet for folks that are wearing gloves in the industrial conditions. Now, how do we package our offer? Is three different varieties. So we have the response package for really an operator who just needs to have that basic remote access as part of either a pandemic response, or you just want to have more flexibility in terms of how your headquarters team or your INC technicians access the controls later. And this features a security device, an appliance, a firewall, two-factor authentication tokens, and it gives you remote and mobile HMI access. This takes about 2 to 4 hours to install, and there's no shutdown required. The next step up is our standard package. It includes the remote and mobile HMI permitting that come enhanced with our simplicity screens, as well as the purpose-built mobility user experience. And then the top package is the advanced package, which includes the high availability with failover, remote e-stop capability for assets that have a traditional hard stop, emergency stop button. We provide that functionality in a command center. Command center functionality on top of what I've already described, which is really a SCADA light view that allows you to optimize on your operations. Really allows you to have a standard environment to focus where your operators spend their time into the individual HMIs. So prioritizing alarms, being able to show a number of different data sources of broadcast information and to integrate in that way. Another key part of this platform is an optional communications platform. If an operator is considering going to remote operations, then they really need to think through the communications aspect of it. And we think what we have is really a best-in-class communications platform that is voice to text, text enabled, so you have a log of different communications along different communication channels of what was requested and when, so there's no ambiguity with respect to what was said, which can often happen if you're just looking at a voice or a push-to-talk radio system. As well as the communication provides analytics in the background to really advise the headquarters team of how should they staff their command center, how should they staff their different work groups so that the remote teams are adequately supported. And then lastly is the digital inspections product, which is optional. It works with our APM software, and it really uses it really integrates the cameras at a plant and built analytics on top of that. So if you have a camera system pointed at gauge bank or manual valves, it can tell you what those settings on the gauges are. And we think that is oftentimes going to be a faster and lower cost solution than instrumenting the whole gauge bank. And we're working on expanding that particular product out to include change detection, as well as some capability in the thermal space. Well, thanks. That concludes the recording. Thanks for spending the time today. And in the live session, I look forward to talk to you with any individual feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We have time for a few questions here. We got one question right here from Keith Larson. Keith is asking, what features of the GE solution would convince an oil and gas user to choose it for remote monitoring over that of an incumbent DCS provider?
That's a good question. The GE solution has some advantages over what we would normally think of as just remoting into like a remote HMI of a DCS system, and then you'll also be able to view the toolbox and the gas turbine controls, or any kind of if it's a Mark 6 type controller, you'll be able to view the toolbox and the simplicity. We also built in features around mobility. So if you have mobile personas roaming around the site doing activities, then they have the mobile features to be able to get into individual HMI screens or the permitting between assets. So really the permitting process between the remote site and the on-prem site or any mobile users, we think is better than what most competitors are offering in the market today.
Good. Thank you, John. We have a question from Mark Hosky, Control Engineering. Please explain more about the time to install from 4 hours to 10 weeks between the first and the second options. Okay.
The first option, the 2 to 4 hours, is really your basic groundwork and initial connectivity. So it's pretty light in terms of it's prepackaged and prepackaged solution which has a firewall and an appliance device that's configured for your site. we ship it, it shows up. When it shows up, you simply connect it to the network that you're going to deploy it on, and we're able to join in as GE services and help you configure it. There's probably a misnomer on the standard package. It's going to be about 12 weeks to where from when you order it to when we can install it, and the installation process is probably about a day with a shutdown, because we do have to do some work on the HMIs. So some of the HMIs, the actual permitting on the standard package are actual HMI upgrades, not just the connection and the remote connection broker.
Cool, good. Thank you, John. We had a question from Thomas Wilkie from Plant Services. This is a timely question. Are you seeing more interest in remote monitoring and tools and services due to the COVID pandemic, or has the customer interest maintained as a steady curve throughout?
There's been a lot of interest. I'd say progressive interest, and then when COVID hit, we saw the interest increase. More, and interestingly enough, we started asking ourselves the question: is this just a blip, and is it going to go away? We think this is more of a sustainable trend where operators are learning how to cope with working remotely, and control room operators are going to like the flexibility of being able to work remotely as well. We met with for instance, we met with a plant in. We installed a remote connection when we did the initial installation in 2008, and this was a homegrown IT solution, and it turns out that when we use that for commissioning for a GE plant, that the customer INC technicians really like that capability as well, and they adopted it just so they don't have to drive in at 2 a.m. when there's a controls issue. They can respond faster. They can avoid a truck roll into the plant in the middle of the night. So they actually put that on as a requirement on us last year, that they wanted a productized solution, and that's part of what we installed there at that plant.
Cool. Thank you, John. Well, there are no more open questions right now. If some more questions could come in, you can probably still submit it via the chat, but I think maybe the best thing would be just to visit John and the other GE experts at the GE virtual exhibit. So with that, we're going to thank John. And I'm just going to remind our editorial participants that we'll start our next session in about 20 minutes. So please come back and join us then. Thank you, John.
Great. Thanks, everyone. And if you have individual questions and you want to email me, john.corsadal@ge.com. I'd love to hear from you, feedback, and interest in the product. Take care.
Take care. Thank you, John.